This is Stigma, where we talk with leaders from many industries about how mental health and addiction have impacted their lives. Many people suffer silently from mental illness, addiction, depression, anxiety, and trauma. They never seek help because of stigma. In this podcast, host Stephen Hayes and his guests share their stories of recovery in order to encourage others to do the same. Here's Stephen.
Welcome back to another episode of the Stigma Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Hayes, and today I have Max and Addie with me from mental health startup Breathwrk, who are going to talk to us about what they're doing, what they're building, and also give us an education on really the neuroscience of how breathing impacts our health and our wellness and our well-being. I'm excited to share this conversation with you. So without further ado, Max and Addie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Stephen, for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
So I wanted to have you guys start by maybe giving a little bio and background and talking about what led you to being in the mental health space or working around breathing.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So my background, I'm originally from New Jersey and born and raised in this very small town, New Jersey. Came out to California to study neuroscience at the University in Southern California. I fell in love with learning about the mind and the body and psychology and sociology and all these things about the brain, and really like that. But as I started to get further and further in college, I kind of realized that I didn't want to go into med school. So I picked up a minor in entrepreneurship, and in the entrepreneurship minor, I really started to love being able to apply psychology to startups and into business. So after college, I graduate and get a job as a chief product officer at a sports psychology company. And we were linking up sports psychologists with athletes to help train them. And then it happened to be a couple years out of college, I go through some personal things, and it all happens in the span of 3 months. So a close relative of mine passes away, the end of a long-term relationship passes, and then also I lose my job. So these 3 months were extremely tough for me. And these started to really unmask a lot of other things from my past and from my childhood that started to come back and really, get to me. So I was in probably one of the most anxious states of my life at the time, which led to a pretty downward depression. I think I've told you this before. I've told you this, but I spent almost an entire month in bed at this point. That's how bad it was. That's how bad my anxiety was. So it was at that point when I knew I needed to go and seek help and needed to just find a solution to this, because this is not the correct way to live in a completely highly anxious state. So I went to go see a therapist, and I was very fortunate to find one that didn't want to just start putting me on medicine right away. He asked me at first, but I didn't want to go on medicine at first because I think that should be the last option. So the first thing he tried to teach me was meditation. And I tried to meditate, but what happened for me with meditation was it was extremely tough to do. And it's extremely tough to meditate when you're an anxious person or in an anxious state of being. So I couldn't really pick up the habit of meditation, and it took way too long to feel the benefits from that. So the second thing he taught me was breathing exercises and breath work. And I remember sitting in his office and on one of those very traditional therapist chairs, and him taking me through such a simple breathing exercise where you inhale for 4 seconds into your belly and then exhale for 6 or 8 seconds through your mouth. And it was within 15 to 30 seconds that I'm already starting to feel so much better. I could feel my heart rate lowering. I could feel my blood pressure lowering. And I feel finally present for the first time in such a long time since going through all these traumas and this terrible depression experience. And I really, took that with me, and I started applying that to multiple different times of my day and multiple different areas of my life. And I loved using my breath as this kind of tool to empower me, to help me. In the beginning, it was to help get over anxiety and to help, get through depression. But over time, it turned into something that could help empower my day in many other ways. So after getting out of that hole and that rut I was in, I also went to research breathwork to see what other applications it had. And to my surprise, the vertical of breathwork was extremely immense. There are people doing breathwork for high endurance training, high elevation training. There's people doing breathwork to help get up in the morning, to jump into a cold shower, like the Wim Hof method. There's Navy SEALs doing breath work to help stay calm under high combat situations. There's people doing breath work to fall asleep. And there's also forms of breath work that release a psychedelic state of being, and transformational breath work. And I was so surprised that there was just so much you could do with your breath alone. So I started to study the science behind it too and realized that, this is all validated stuff. There's actually a physiological and psychological reaction that happens when you're doing certain breathing exercises that validate what's happening to you as you do them. So after researching into that and seeing that there was so much out there in the field of breath, one day I have an anxiety attack and I go to the app store to see if anyone created just a breathing app, something I could breathe to simply. And there was nothing out there. There was a few, like apps that were kind of clunky and not well branded, but there was nothing in the breathwork space that existed like Calm or Headspace did in the meditation space. I saw the meditation space and saw there was so much ubiquity they created within meditation, and they did a great job at branding and bringing it to mainstream and to the Western society. But there was no one who really took breathwork and all the amazing, modalities to breathwork and made an app about it. So at that time, okay, I need to do something about this. So I gave myself 2 weeks to go and see how far I could get along with building a prototype for this idea, just as something I could have in my back pocket, just in case it ran to someone who wanted to start this idea with me. So I took these 2 weeks, I put together a prototype, I put together a pitch deck, put together a website, threw together an Instagram page. And at the end of these 2 weeks, very randomly, one of my old boss's friends was like, hey, come by and pitch some ideas with me. I have this friend coming over named Addie. And Addie has this amazing background that she told me about. And I looked her up on LinkedIn. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. I'd love to meet Addie and talk about ideas, because I love to come up with ideas and see what works and try things out. So I remember going there and meeting Addie, and within like 45 seconds of me showing Addie what I was working on, she was like, do you want to partner with me on this? And I'm like, yes, let's do this. Like, if you're passionate about it, I'm passionate about it. But what she did next is she pulled out her phone and showed me that one of the top notes in her phone was create a breathwork app. So she was thinking of the same exact thing at the same exact time as me. And she literally put that note in her phone a month before meeting me, which is so crazy that we happen to meet at the same place at the same time. And we just have this, amazing passion for the product. And since that day, like, we've been, all heads down and completely aligned with vision and focus and building this company to really help empower as many people as possible with their breath, because there are so many ways that people can use their breath to elevate their life.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And Addie, what about you? What's your sort of bio background story, if you could share with our listeners?
Sure. So prior to my serendipitous moment with Max, I had started my career out actually in paid search advertising. So, and this was way back, like 2004, early days of Google search ads. And I got really lucky sort of early in my career. I got a job within an MIT incubator, and I was just working with these incredibly intelligent guys who had PhDs in robotics and different types of engineering. I really felt like I was getting my master's and my PhD working with anything that I could think of they could build. So it really taught me to think in limitless ways. And what we were building was some of the most advanced search engine marketing technology in the world, but then utilizing that to fuel a whole bunch of different lead gen verticals. So the lead gen vertical that I concentrated on was the education vertical. So basically signing people up to be interested and then get harassed by University of Phoenix. So we built the largest education lead gen engine, in the world. And with it was like a year and a half, we sold that company for 9 figures. So super fast, really exciting. It was like my first adrenaline shot of being in a startup. And so then after the acquisition, I stayed on. We were a subsidiary of the Washington Post company, who is our acquirer. And I was just diversifying revenue streams and sort of fell into the early days of Facebook advertising. And, I managed this like incredible team of PhD statisticians. So I was able to take an approach to Facebook that leveraged just sort of this incredible quant team. And within a week, I was spending over $100,000 a day on the Facebook platform, but like at 80% margin. And it was just crushing all of my search. So got really early access to Facebook ad API. I was building cool tech on top of it, had really cool methodologies for testing and for data analysis. And the chairman of the Washington Post happens to be on the board of Facebook. So he had heard that, one of the companies that he owned out of Boston was one of their top advertisers. And long story short, he came to Boston. I ended up spinning that out as a Facebook ad agency with the chairman's daughter. And it was one of those things, like, I was a workaholic in my 20s. It was like 80 to 100 hours a week. Like, I really believed like my purpose in life was to build an advertising company and to sell it. And so I built a really big company. We were like the largest Facebook ad agency. We then finally, 5 years, that was my goal. We got the 9-figure offer to sell to one of the top holding companies just for even half of the company. It was great. I thought my life was just going to completely change at that point, and I will have gotten everything that I ever worked towards and fulfilled my purpose. But, starting a company with a billionaire, they have really different economics than me, who grew up on a farm in Vermont. So she actually rejected the deal. It was her family was the board. Everybody has their reasons for things. But for me, it was like this crazy, devastating moment where I think I just questioned my entire life, but became a forcing event for me to really reevaluate. And then just this inflection point. So within a week of rejecting the deal, I actually ended up quitting the company. And I already had this trip booked down to Mexico that I went, but actually spent like 3 months living on a commune in Mexico, like this nudist commune. And while there, I met a shaman and then went down to the Amazon jungle and was working with shamans there, and really just went on this whole journey to refine myself after kind of being traumatized, leaving my company, which is, 200 people that I considered to be my family. And along that journey, reconnected with a mentor of mine from when I was 17 years old, who had become one of the leaders in flow states and the neurosomatics of high performance. And he worked with Navy SEALs, and he worked with performance athletes, and he worked with, top CEOs on getting them out of their own heads and getting them into these flow states where frontal lobe shuts down and they're able to operate at their peak performance. And the first thing that he sort of taught me was breath work during this time. And the first type of breath work was we did a holotropic session. And I had this psychedelic experience that went beyond sort of all of, my plant medicine experience. But then, as an ADHD kid and someone who has a hard time sitting down for more than 15 minutes, he showed me just sort of calming breaths, how to make my exhale longer than my inhale. He showed me a box breath that he had, learned from the Navy SEALs in order to just help focus or recharge me. So breath became my favorite modality. To this point today, I'm an aspiring meditator. I took a TM class. I bought the Muse headband to try and meditate, but just never could turn it into a daily practice. I think for me, just the immediacy of breath and being able to use it in all these different modalities. I mean, since then, going down the rabbit hole of breath, I grew up ski racing. I've taken on mountaineering and summiting high peaks. And so I adopted Wim Hof breath as my daily practice. And it's really like when people ask me what my favorite modality is or what the most important tool in my tool set has been, it's been breath. And, so I too was just watching the meditation apps get massive and seeing just the explosion as well as just the ubiquity that they were able to create and how many more people were talking about meditation. But just really had this strong feeling that, at least for myself and so many people that I knew, breath was way more powerful. It was stickier and it was useful across more points and moments in my life and was just easier for me to develop a daily habit on. So that was sort of my thesis going into things, was breath would create a better app. So I wrote that note on my phone. And then I'm just such a believer in serendipity. As you hear my story, like with companies, people always just kind of came to me in so many different ways. Things just show up in my life, and I'm good at sort of then putting pieces into place and making things come true. So when meeting Max, he showed me the app. I don't think Max mentioned it when he talked, but Max designed the entire front end of our app. And he did it in a way that's extremely benefits driven, and it's simple and it's easy and it's clean. And I saw this and it was like, I'm not a design visual person myself in that way, but it perfectly expressed what was in my brain. And I just understand the R squared effect of talent. So that's why within 45 seconds, after working with these MIT guys, you just start to recognize talent, and Max was it. And so Max and I had met in August. We released the App Store together November 1. So it's been really, really fast. And I think, for myself, and I know for Max too, like we just feel so aligned with purpose. Like that's always what I was looking for, is something that I could sort of utilize this skill set that I had, but combine it with something that I really believe in, that I think can really be transformational for the world. And I think this is it. And especially during these COVID times, Max and I both just love to read the reviews in the App Store and just how much people are being helped. And yeah, I just feel so grateful to be where we are right now.
Thanks for sharing that. I mean, both of your stories are really fantastic. And honestly, how they merged together to bring you together around this idea that you both were thinking of it kind of in a similar timeline is really serendipitous in a way. So I'd love to hear kind of what happened next. So you guys connected, you had this really incredible conversation where it sounded like your worlds were colliding in the perfect time. And then how was Breathwrk born?
Yeah. I mean, what happened next was Addie was like, I'm going to be in Ojai next weekend. Let's have another meeting. So I meet with Addie in Ojai, and we just say, I tell her, I know this development company, going to get this app developed. Here's the plan for the Instagram. Here's the plan how we're going to roll it out. And she had some ideas too. And we just incorporated it right there on the spot and then hopped in a pool at Ojai.
Literally.
That's great. So what is the business today? What is the app today? And I guess maybe a better question is, maybe we zoom out a little bit. Why separate breathwork from meditation? Like, why do they need to be separate?
Yeah, I think with my experience with meditation in the beginning and failing with it, I think it's a commonality between many people who aspire to meditate. You see all the benefits of it and they want to be more mindful and they want to do this and do that with their minds and bodies, but they're realizing the barrier to entry there is really, really tough. Meditation is almost like running a 5K the first time you're going running. It's really complicated. And we live in a time where we need things that are a little bit more instant. We're used to grabbing our phone and getting what we want right away. We can order Postmates and get food at the flick of a finger. But something like breath work, which is so easy and so instant and so almost different than meditation, I think it's way more appealing and way more attractive to people. And there's no stigma around breath work either. Breathwork is kind of this new and up and coming trend. I mean, it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. People have been manipulating the way they breathe for forever. But it's this new and upcoming field where there's no assumption about it. There's no people who failed at doing breathwork because most people can do it because most people are already breathing. And there's all this assumption around meditation and what it does. And we think that because breathwork, A, is instant and B, just has more benefits and such a wide vertical of benefits that it really needs its own app and it really needs its own independency from meditation. Meditation and breathwork can go together, but you can't use meditation to help cure an anxiety attack in the middle of the moment. You can't use meditation to energize your body and get ready to hop in a cold shower or run a 5K. You can't use meditation to increase your endurance. Sometimes you can use meditation to fall asleep, but you can't use meditation to lower your heart rate to get yourself in a low beta way of operating to help go to sleep. So there's all these things that meditation can't do. And the barrier to entry to meditation is so high that breathwork just makes such a good place to have an app for itself. And because breathwork can be built upon too, you can start to gamify the application and the experience too. So with breathwork, you need to be retained in the app because all these things are based off different ratios. And when you do a certain ratio, you actually achieve a certain physical and mental state of being. So when you try to do that without an app or without guidance, it's pretty tough to stick with it and to retain with it. So by gamifying the app, we get people to stick with it more, and then people like it more and come back and feel the added benefits of it right away. And we're seeing right now that people who complete an exercise in the first week tend to stick around for months and weeks upon after that, because they get it. They feel it right away. They feel the benefits and they say, oh, this is actually something that's useful. And I think what happens to a lot of people when they go and try to do meditation is that they fail and then they kind of brush it under, the bush and say, this isn't for me. But we think meditation is way for more people and more mass market.
And so how do you think about defending a business like this from competitors? And what I mean by that is, like, why can't Calm do breath work? And why can't anybody just decide to build an app that says, here's when you breathe in, here's when you breathe out?
Yeah, well, with the first part of that question, with Calm and with Headspace and all the other meditation apps out there, they've built their app in a way that's made for meditation. And we've built our app in a way that's made for breath work. So the big differentiating factor of that is we're able to fundamentally change the way that the app has been built. So we're able to make it this more immersive gamification experience, benefit driven, and actually achieve a state of being while actually doing these exercises. So the way that we create it is to retain people into the app and to make it as easy as possible to get people to an exercise. With these meditation apps can add a breathing component to it, but they can't add the whole functionality that we have of taking people through these different exercises, having different soundtracks, different music, and then giving them points and rewards and allowing them to progress through these exercises that can get more complex over time. We think that by keeping it simple and keeping it to the point, that's going to be way more appealing to people than it is to go to Calm or Headspace and find a breathwork tab or a breathing tab that doesn't really encompass the entire app. And then people subscribe to that and are paying for way more things than they want to pay for. So we think that the independence from a meditation app is really important for breathwork. And as far as competitors, we want to be the best in breath, and that's been a goal of ours since the creation of it. And by achieving the best in breath, that just means that we want to hold ourselves to the highest standard possible. So we want to have everything be backed by science and show the scientific reason why this is happening, what's happening to your body, how it's affecting your nervous system, what's happening to your brain, what's happening to your heart, what's happening to your blood pressure. So by always showing the efficacy of what we're doing to our users, we think is really important. And by also having that first movers advantage in the market, we're able to go after different forms of talent and different types of people who are already in the breathwork space and convert them onto our team opposed to a secondary app coming out.
Just to double click, and I think the biofeedback thing is really interesting in a number of different ways in terms of how that differentiates us in terms of actually sort of fundamentally building a different type of app, right? Which I think Max has described, but also then where it can take us in the future. So by focusing just on breath, right? So our entire app is basically those breaths that are then mapped to a benefit, a breath pattern, which is a sort of recipe of ratios. And then we'll be able to have a data feedback loop on outcome, right? So not only does that give us an incredible panel of data to understand efficacy and something that we can show results to users, which I think is really, really unique. One thing that I'm excited for is, as part of being best in breath, is to also use that to be able to innovate. If you think about, as we're talking through how a breathwork app is fundamentally different than a meditation app, and there's all these different things, gamification and things that will allow it to do, on the highest level, meditation is a timer combined with basically content, right? That has to be curated. Breath is these different ratios and of inhale to exhale, breath holds, and then combination, then you've got the variable of like nasal versus mouth. It's actually like there aren't that many combinatorics. And I think as we sort of are able to get this data feedback loop, we're going to be able to innovate on coming up with even new breaths as we understand how those different inputs produce different outputs in real time to people by having those biofeedback levers. So my hope is we're going to have the largest panel of sort of breath data in the world. And how do we continue to learn faster than everybody else, be smarter, partner with all of the right people who are doing advanced research that's already going on, and really just sort of have this very deliberate, very data-driven lens to be able to understand and innovate in the space faster than anybody else. And I think that's part of the moat that we're building.
You said something about the science. I want to understand this a little bit better. What are these physiological responses? And can you explain the neuroscience, like the basic building blocks, the way that maybe an average person like me could understand?
Yeah, I could go into a little bit. So most people breathe automatically, and most animals breathe automatically too. And we're one of the actually only animals that has the ability to manipulate the pattern and way in which we breathe. And that's actually a superpower that we have within us. Because for every state of being there is a different breathing pattern associated with it. And what we have the advantage and leg up amongst other animals is that if we can mimic the breathing pattern of an emotional state of being, then we could actually trick the mind to actually believing we're in that state of being, send signals down back to the body and back to the brain to put you in that state of being. So if you're breathing like someone who is in a deep REM sleep, then it's going to trick your mind to believing that you're more tired and put your body into a state of being as if it's going into a REM sleep. If you're breathing like someone who's extremely calm, you're going to be able to lower your heart rate and lower your blood pressure and send that signal to your brain, back to your body to actually induce that state of being. And then if you're breathing like someone who is highly energetic and ready to go fight or flight or ready to extremely focus on something, you're also able to stimulate your body in that way too. So we have really two mechanisms of being. It's the parasympathetic state and the sympathetic state. The sympathetic state is the fight or flight state. And that's the state of being when your blood pressure is high, your heart rate's high. You're either doing something that takes energy or intense focus. You're either exercising and stuff along those lines. And that's when you need to be in your sympathetic state. And for the most part, sympathetic state is very advantageous. But when you start to be in the sympathetic state, when you're not doing things that require you to be in that state, it starts to be kind of dangerous and hazardous to your body. And that's what really anxiety is you're in a sympathetic state, you're in that fight or flight state when you don't need to be in that state. So a lot of people use breath work to help calm themselves down when they're feeling in a more elevated state. So when they're more anxious, they're more stressed, they're more worked up, and you want to calm down. Breath work is a very simple tool to go and fool your body and your brain into actually thinking it's more calm, which then makes you more calm. It's almost like fake it till you make it in forms of breathing. Like you breathe in the way in which you want to be, and then you become that way because your body believes that.
Yeah, a lot of people are familiar with the smiling, right? The smile example is like a good one. A lot of people know that scientific study, Max, of like if you smile, it will actually release dopamine and serotonin and make you happier and reduce stress. The other day, I was telling someone that the breathing pattern example, and they were like the smile one. And I think that's like a really common study that sort of parallels to this of sort of adopting something and overriding sort of an autonomous function of your body, but then in a way that brings it into the state that you aspire to be in simply by emulating that state, which I think is super cool. And you can see just sort of the vastness of where you could take that because there are so many different states of being.
And not only mentally emulating that state too, like there's other certain breathing patterns can actually change the chemical makeup of what's going through your blood. So by doing a certain breathing pattern, you could actually put your body into a more alkalinic state, which is great for helping build a better immune response to things. And also changing the formula of how much oxygen to CO2 you have in your body can also achieve a certain benefit too. So like by getting more oxygen into your body, you're able to induce certain states of being too, along with just mimicking and like Addie said, like the smiling method for things.
So where can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you guys?
Right now, they can find us on the Apple App Store on our website, breathwrk.com. Addie and I make our emails very easy. So it's Addie or Max at breathwrk.com if people want to reach out to us directly. And one great thing about we see with our users is that people like to share it a lot. And that's one thing that like we want to continue to push out there. So when you use the app and you find benefits of it, think of someone else who can also find benefits of it. Someone who maybe gets worked up or really frustrated, someone who has trouble sleeping or getting out of bed in the morning. You could just send them the app because 20% of our users are already doing that. And we always encourage people to share because we just love the idea of spreading this as far and as wide as possible and normalizing it as much as possible. We think that, we could make breath a normal thing to really consciously think about more often and see the amazing benefits throughout the world because of that.
One obvious question I forgot was, why do you spell the name Breathwrk without an O?
We went to GoDaddy.com and breathwrk.com with the O was taken and Breathwrk without the O was the one. And we thought that it was better for trademarking purposes too. So we use Breathwrk.
I love it. What a great logical, rational scientist answer. I love it. It's perfect. What am I missing here? I'm sure there's something obvious. What am I missing that I should be asking you guys about?
I guess we could talk about some of the things that we're most excited about that are kind of coming down the pike.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I mean, what does have you the most fired up right now?
One of the most things that I'm personally most excited about is one of the things that we've noticed in the app is that while at the beginning people use visuals a lot, that a lot of users, as they start to use the app more and more, start to rely solely on audio within the app.
I agree with that. Actually, I love the little auto reminder where I hear a breath and it dings and it's like, oh, you know what? I totally forgot that I should be doing that. I love that part of the app.
Totally. And so sound is super important to us. So we just actually were able to sign sort of a deal with this guy, Paul Blair, who's an incredible human being. And he has been a producer for Lady Gaga. And he most recently won the Grammy for producing Lady Gaga's music and writing some of it for A Star Is Born. And he's actually going to be working with us to create all the different sounds in the app and to really sort of enhance what sound can be and push forward how breath can be delivered through sound. So that is something that I'm just super thrilled about and can't wait for.
Yeah, I'm super thrilled about kind of integrating into biometrics and the Apple Watch too. Like being able to send a breath pattern to someone's wrist that vibrates, when maybe they're in a meeting or maybe they're sitting down and don't want to pull their phone out or open their phone. There's so many non-invasive ways to get people to breathe properly over time. And just also excited, just continuing to spread this around the world. We're already in 173 different countries, 100,000 installs, potential featured by Apple very soon. And just, seeing the reviews and seeing the people come in and write to us is just one of the best things to ever wake up to. Like we've had people writing about, this app helped me put my 7-year-old daughter to sleep who's autistic at night. This app helped me wake up in the morning. I've been depressed from the coronavirus and I have trouble waking up. Like this has been helping me through that. Like seeing that, community and that usership and that adoption actually having a huge impact on people's lives is just so meaningful. So continuing to spread that around the world is also what I'm excited for. We think there's going to be tons and tons of stories like that as we continue to grow.
That's awesome. Well, look, I'm really grateful to have you guys come on and tell the story and share what you're doing with everyone. I've enjoyed using the app. I think it's great. And I wish you guys the best. And thank you so much for spending your time on a Friday afternoon with me.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
I wanted to say another special thank you to Max and Addie for being here and for the insights and for the education on how the neuroscience of our brains works and how breathing impacts us. I really learned a lot. This was really helpful for me, and I hope it was for our listeners. To our listeners, thank you for being here. And please, if you like the content, give us a subscribe or a like or a review on your podcast platform of choice, and be sure to share us with a friend. We also have a Patreon account where our loyal supporters can support our content creation and get more insights into what we're doing and some of our insights into the market. We'll share a link to that in the show notes. We definitely want to hear from you. Please do comment on social media and let us know what you'd like to hear more of, what you disagreed with, what you agreed with. And you can reach out to us on Twitter at StigmaCast, Instagram at StigmaPodcast. You can email us info@stigmapodcast.com and find us on the website at stigmapodcast.com, obviously. And that's it for today. Thanks for being here. Until next time, stay safe and be well.